It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. 29 degrees as at this morning. It's going to get hotter much later. Well, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, you declare us the daily dose of sunshine every day, so no wonder it gets hot from time to time. Amaya Makide, good morning and welcome. 29 degrees in Lagos as well. And today, for those of you who are counting, it's the 21st day in the month of March 2025. So where are you taking us this morning, Maokwe?
Well, we're going all the way to the northeast of the country to Gombe State, where we're going to be looking at the Balanga Dam. The Balanga Dam, interestingly, I have never heard of it before now. I'm hoping that it will be something that will be also of a surprise to our viewers this morning. But we understand it's a naturally occurring dam with some features added sometimes in the 1970s. Capable of providing electricity and irrigation. It hasn't quite been put to use yet, as with many things, sadly, in our country. But prayerfully, we understand that, I hate to say prayerfully, come on, Nigerians, we pray too much. We need more action. We understand a few more features are now being added, and that the governor of the state, seems intent on making the most of this naturally occurring dam. But, take a look at this site. We certainly are not short of places to visit and places to explore. Ayo, isn't this a sight for sore eyes?
No, Mark, if I say it now, you say I'm always seeing a movie. But come on, look at that shot, that first shot we saw the other time. There is no way anyone would imagine that this is a shot taken in Nigeria if you put some color grading on it. I'm sure some editors are wondering, oh wow, how come movie industries don't discover these things? But just look at it. Just look at it, Maokwe. Beautiful shot in the morning, put some colors on it, put some action in it, and there you have it. A Hollywood graded movie, even a Bollywood, whatever kind of movie you want. For me, Maokwe, one of the things that I found out about this dam is that it's also a huge tourism potential. Question is, what have we done about it? This dam is also known prominent by the people in the community for dry season farming. In fact, they have a dry season farmers association. I didn't know that until this morning. So the humongous potential is there. Question is, what are we doing about it? Along the line, the dam and the kind of dried up due to some things that are useful for dry season farming, and the people cried out, the government stepped in, and for about 5 years, I hear, this dam was shut from activity. But just look at this shot, Markwell. Come on. Now, that's what I'm talking. Just look at that shot. Who is going to say that this is Nigeria? But ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to announce to you, wherever you are watching this, anywhere in the world, this is Nigeria. In fact, it's in Gombe State. In fact, it's in the northeast of Nigeria. The place many people thought all we knew was scarcity and insecurity. No, it also has this huge, tremendous tourism potential. So, as we say, Markwe, let's feed our eyes for a bit.
Well, when I was talking about today's date, I was going to say, there's so much to look out for today, or so much to fix our eyes on today, as a lot of people did fix their eyes on the National Assembly yesterday, wondering if it was going to give approval to that declaration of emergency done by President Bola Tinubu. Well, surprisingly, shall I say surprisingly or not surprisingly, they did. But it's the manner in which they've done so that has given quite a number of people questions to ask the National Assembly. It would seem that it was approved with a voice vote rather than getting members of the National Assembly to vote individually to know precisely where they stood as to whether or not they approved that emergency declaration given by the president. But this was how it transpired on the floor of the National Assembly.
Anticipation is palpable as lawmakers reconvene for a crucial plenary session that would determine their stance on President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. A correspondence from President Tinubu is read on the floor.
From the President of the Senate on the circumstances of the proclamation of a state of emergency declared by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, on the state of affairs in Rivers State.
During the session, the leader of the Senate, under Order 1B, seeks to reorder the day's proceedings to entertain the request.
Mr. President, that we reorder the agenda on the order paper.
He had barely concluded when Senator Siriake Dixon raises a point of order, a move which sparked a back and forth with the Senate president.
Point of order. Distinguished Senator Siriake Dixon.
Yes.
I watch you on television.
Mr. President, I have
and
a point of order for which
listen to me. And you said no matter what the Senate does, the Senate will not have your vote on anything the Senate does. That's what you said on television. When the Senate has even considered the issue. I want to let you know.
To me, please.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm only saying please allow me to preside.
I wanted to draw your attention, Mr. President, respectfully, and the attention of all our colleagues, to the specific provisions of our rules. The President shall, in a closed session, brief the Senate on the circumstances of the proclamation of a state of emergency.
Your point of order is upheld.
Thank you.
For an hour and a half, the lawmakers hold a closed-door session before emerging with a series of resolutions.
The Senate invokes the powers conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further resolved that Section 11, subsection 4 be invoked, providing the National Assembly the authority to set up a joint ad hoc committee of both chambers to oversight the administration of Rivers State henceforth. The Senate further resolved that a committee to reconcile the warring factions in Rivers State should consist of eminent Nigerians.
The approval for a state of emergency in Rivers State is done via voice votes. The Senate's approval of President Tinubu's proclamation of emergency rule in Rivers State certainly marks one of the most decisive and enthusiastic moments in the chamber's history. The vote legitimizes the president's ruling, definitely raises the stakes for all parties involved in the unfolding political crisis. For more reactions on this in the Green Chamber, we join my colleague Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Gloria. I'll be speaking in a low tone because the House of Representatives is currently in a closed-door session. And what we know about sessions like this, especially considering the enormity of the request from Mr. President, is that they're trying to ensure that when the doors are flung open, the deliberations go as peaceful as possible.
The session, however, did not commence peacefully. As the House commences the debate after the Speaker read a letter of request from the President, a constitutional point of order is raised on the need to ensure that a quorum has been formed.
Whether we have formed a quorum, Mr. Speaker, as enshrined in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, so that our deliberations are not going to be deliberations based on illegality.
It is noted, Honorable. Please, you can sit down.
Mr. Speaker, it is good enough, and I urge you that we comply strictly with the Constitution by first transparently announcing the quorum as it is now for us to go into this debate. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity. We are not yet at the point of voting. So the point of vote, what are being raised, until we get to the point of voting, that is when possibly that clause could be asked.
Interestingly, the matter is not debated. Instead, amendments are made.
Section 305 cannot be read in isolation of Section 11, subsection 4 of the same Constitution. At any time, when any House of Assembly of a state is unable to perform its function, by reason of the situation prevailing in that state, the National Assembly may make such laws for the peace, order, and good government of that state with respect to matters on which a House of Assembly may make laws as may appear to the National Assembly.
The amendments are adopted by the House and the final vote is taken.
Those in support of this request from Mr. President as amended should say aye. Those against should say nay. There is have it. I want the House to note that today's plenary is being attended by 243 members based on our attendance registers. Just for records, we are more than satisfied the requirement of this particular amendment.
Well, members of the House of Representatives leave the chamber today having voted unanimously in support of the President's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State and suspension of the governor, the deputy, and the legislative arm. They believe that they've set the right precedents here today. They've also asked that the President set up a committee that would mediate in the course of this emergency rule so that peace can be brokered in between. From the National Assembly, Terry Utomi, Channels Television News.
Well, that was what transpired on the floor of both chambers of the National Assembly yesterday, where a voice vote was done to give approval to the proclamation of emergency rule declared by the President in Rivers State. We'll be dissecting more of these issues with Professor Utomi when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Professor Utomi, Professor of Political Economics and founder for Center for Values in Leadership, joins us virtually this morning to take a look at the developments in Rivers State and also right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning, Prof. Thank you so much for staying with us on this program. You haven't hidden your disapproval of the President's declaration of emergency. You have tweeted your disapproval. You say the chorus is of disapproval of the state of emergency in Rivers, Falana Abati, and the NBA called it unconstitutional. Abati said it was impeachable and wondered if the National Assembly had the guts to do its duty. I'm wondering if you are surprised by what has transpired on the floor of the National Assembly.
Democracy was murdered in Nigeria yesterday. I cannot publicly say that I come from a country that is a democracy. It is not a democracy. Even the manner of it is so disdainful of the sensitivity of the Nigerian people. You will recall many years ago when there were questions of whether or not the June 12th, the third term thing was going to happen. People wanted to see who voted one way or the other in a matter of profound national importance. To do what they did yesterday was an insult to the Nigerian people. And the National Assembly has become consistent in insulting the Nigerian people. We do not have a democracy anymore. The question is how we proceed from here, recognizing that we don't have a democracy. There is certainly, I mean, I felt like Alan Paton cried the beloved country yesterday. How could they do this to us? After all these years, most of these characters were hiding when people like us put our lives on the line for this democracy. And now they shrivel it. They make it a joke or a measure pottage. What a tragedy for a country. What a tragedy.
Well, yesterday it was a voice vote, but from what we heard and from what we understood, I mean, I think the Senate President, in defense of, their choice of the method of voting, said there wasn't one dissenting voice.
Yeah, I've heard the Senate President call for a voice vote before, and everybody said nay, and he said the ayes have it. I have it on video. I've seen it before. So the whole thing is a scam on the Nigerian people. Look, let me tell you where this eventually leaves us. Last year, the Nobel Prize for Economics went to 3 gentlemen. On the day it was announced, one of them, James Robinson, was interviewed on one of the global networks. And he said, what it takes to develop, to make progress into this world is now very well known. But some countries like Nigeria know, but choose not to do those things. Now, one of the things that make for progress in all of humanity, consensus from economists, sociologists, historians, economic historians have been the most fervent with work in this area, is the role of institutions. And every day, very sadly, I watch the Nigerian political class demolish Nigerian institutions. It may give them warm moments, quote unquote, personal victory, either in their pockets or whatever it is they're doing, but it destroys the future of their children, and I hope they know that. Our institutions they've destroyed the judiciary. The National Assembly does not constitute another realm that has oversight or check or balance to the other. It is just a complete joke. The world laughs at us. And it's a tragedy that we are where we are.
Be clear on this, because as much as you have argued that the emergency is unconstitutional, what precisely is unconstitutional about it? Because some people have said the president is empowered in section 305 to declare a state of emergency. What it would seem a number of people have taken objection to is his suspension of the governor and the House of Assembly. Is that what you take objection to as well?
That is not even. What is the problem in Rivers State that warrants a state of emergency? Tell me what it is. When pipelines were going like popcorn in Rivers State, was there a state of emergency? Why did he not declare a state of emergency in Lagos State when the assembly was tossing back and forth? Why Rivers? There is something about fairness, equity, and just pure decency. And I don't see it here. And I think that's a shame that they want to rubbish the democracy that we all fought so hard for. But karma, it comes back to haunt everybody. Unfortunately, we're going to stay in poverty for a long time because of the conduct of these kinds of people in public life.
So let's be clear, you are not in support of a declaration of an emergency in Rivers State, because I'm looking at the president's statement here. He says, with the crisis persisting, there is no way democratic governance, which we have all fought and worked for over the years, can thrive. So according to him, he's also defending democracy in Rivers State, and that's why he's declaring this. But you see the need for that.
That's not true at all. Obaseki and Edo State faced very similar circumstances. There is nothing that the chap in Port Harcourt has done that Godwin Obaseki did not do. And so why was a state of emergency not declared in Edo State? Look, let's be fair. This is supposed to be a case of two fighting. Who are these two fighting? Let's name them. And over what are they fighting? And why do a whole people have to bear the brunt of these outsized egos who are damaging the peace of all for whatever it is they claim they are fighting, which is not in our constitution. We don't know anything about fathers or godfathers in our constitution. And one man can sit in judgment in his own court where he is an active partisan and make these kinds of choices, and the Nigerian people just sit and watch. That's tragedy for our country. Tragedy.
I know my colleague Ayo has questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Markwe. You know, Prof, one of the issues a number of people have wondered is, and I'll ask you as well, because I've asked a few people before, but this is the angle to it with you, Prof. Now, the state of emergency is in place, and the executive and legislature are at variance with each other in very strong, clear, unequivocal terms. They have both flouted the Constitution at various times, and nothing happened to anyone. And then, given the threats, according to the president, of imminent threats of danger, he put it in that statement, it was ripe for a state of emergency. The Constitution is silent on what happens when the state of emergency is in place, what happens to the governor, what happens to the legislature. So what, in your opinion, are the options open to the president? Given that the two factions, the executive and the legislature, are at variance in strong terms, and that the reasons for this, for the call for the state of emergency?
First of all, I want to ask you to show me. I just said in response to Maokwe, I gave examples. Edo State, Lagos State, and places where executives and legislatures have been at variance. Nobody declared a state of emergency. In state of emergency, there is harm, they say, that can come. From who to who? Let's see those intelligence reports that said this person is going to do that. I have just seen a release by COP, opposition coalition, in which they rebuked the Attorney General for daring to suggest that similarly the governor of Rivers State was responsible for pipeline explosion. And I've said before on this program, there was a time when Nigeria went into a recession because pipelines were going off like Christmas crackers. And we didn't see a state of emergency declared. Why now? No, it doesn't make sense to me. You don't know that you can go around the world fooling yourself, saying, you know, you're attracting investment. Just a simple decision they made yesterday made Nigeria unattractive for investments. Everybody who is a serious investor ticks it off. Serious instability. They've declared martial law in a part of the country. In fact, the part of the country that is most critical for their revenue flows. You know, I don't know how we carry on this kind of masochistic behavior. Load the machine gun, shoot ourselves in the foot because of our egos, because we cannot control ourselves as politicians. Two fighting, as they say, and one person takes side with the other person, and you bring... Look, I feel very much like Dele Faru to me, who says, you know, commenting on this thing is really annoying because, you know, these are people who are doing these terrible things together, and suddenly one has to take... If you have to take a position, take it in the interest of history, because not because this side is better than that side. It's just a shame that the Nigerian people have, you know, inherited this kind of political class. And we're not going anywhere as a country until we get rid of this political class, I assure you.
Well, Prof, you know, you cited two states, the examples of two states, and there are those who would draw the differences to you. On the one hand, in Lagos, the executive and the legislature were not the ones at variance. It was the colleagues within the State House of Assembly that were at variance with each other and had nothing to do with the state government per se, the executive arm of government per se. And as for Obaseki, there are those who would ask you, if it happened during the government of Obaseki in Edo State and the president at the time didn't do anything, does that make it right?
So what piece was damaged enough in Edo State to have warranted that? I'm just giving you one sliver, just a little bit of the consequences for the Nigerian economy of that decision. Because when they get into these political things, they don't think more broadly. I've told you about a current winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics. I said, look, Nigeria is basically irresponsible. That's why its economy is not growing. And people are suffering, dying of hunger. There's poverty in the land. Instead of focusing on how we can create a developmental state that cares about the people, people go to the National Assembly, take money, and rubbish their country, and make it a place that's not attractive for investment. There will be judgment. I assure you, there will be judgment.
Well, the question, one other question that plays, Prof, is, with this situation, exactly what for you is the issue? Is it the fact that the state of emergency was declared, or that the government of the day, except the judiciary, was suspended?
There was no basis for declaring one, none whatsoever. It was deliberately contrived. There was no basis for a state of emergency. Look, a good part of Nigeria is in worse situations of emergency. The banditry in the northwest, all the things in the northeast, those are even more challenging reasons that you could use to declare state of emergency. Nobody did. And then the case of true fighting, you know, over what? And our country has to be put on the international shelf as a no good place to do business. This is tragic.
You know, Prof, there are those who would also say that the president called a meeting of all service chiefs, the top security brass in the country, called the leadership of the legislature into a meeting, called the AGF into that same meeting, to look at some aspects of the development in River State before that decision was taken. Is it possible, Prof, that there was some information?
Let them make it public
that there was
so that we can evaluate. We're citizens, we have a duty.
Yeah, but you also know that there are some security information that cannot just be put in public space. So could they have some information that Nigerians are not aware of which informed this decision?
What kind of information can they have that is so overwhelming that they can jeopardize Nigeria's future this much? What information that we cannot tell? What information? This does not make sense. Any child knows what's going on, and it is not good. And our failure to be able to call a spade in Nigeria has crippled us. A country with so much potential that is far, far from what it should be. Because we have elders that cannot speak truth to power. We have young people that don't even know what they're doing anymore. Some young person called me yesterday and said, well, there are really only two ways open: leave Nigeria or join them. There must be another way. There must be a better way. There's a nation that can be built. We don't have to be this crap.
All right, Prof, you said something earlier that the way forward is to look for a way around the situation. What we do now is, what is important now is what we do hereafter. Now, with the National Assembly having legitimized the state of emergency, which way forward do you see?
Well, they can undo what they did. There have been many occasions where for example, this business of voice vote for such a critical thing is not acceptable in a decent society. They can unwind that voice vote. Look, Professor Koinsola Ajayi, SAN, when he was being interviewed on some other platform 2 nights ago or so, was saying, in fact, all that was needed was a third of the House to filibuster. But these corrupt fellows in the National Assembly will not even try to give an alternative way a chance. They smoke the future of their children. There will be judgment.
But in the event that there is another look at the thing and the National Assembly votes, don't forget, the House of Representatives, according to the Speaker, had about 243 members who unanimously agreed with the President. So quite a sizable representation, one would say. Should the National Assembly vote again, they vote electronically, if you will, and they still vote yes, that the President should go ahead, what happens afterwards? How do we navigate this situation and bring the state back on track?
Well, we've had recourse to all kinds of things, including what we call the doctrine of necessity. What is important is the overwhelming best interest of the people, the common good of all Nigerians. If we find a path to it, we are used to illegality. The whole system is illegal anyway. Elections don't mean anything anymore in Nigeria. Courts give rulings that shock the world. I mean, how can they take us that low? How can? 50 years of struggle, people like myself. This is not fair. It is not right that they should do this for a measure of pottage. What is it that they're sharing? It's not right. It's not right.
Well, Prof, if you were to preach peace to the young Nigerian watching and listening to you right now, what would your words be to them?
Peace has always been the superior path. What this does is actually to preach the peace. What I say to them, and I have said repeatedly, is that they should turn to non-violent protestation of their views. And there are so many methods of non-violence that can bring that system to a complete halt, to signal that they want a different society. But non-violence. You should remember Gandhi, remember Martin Luther King Jr., and now the capabilities are improved with technology to carry on non-violent resistance to civilian martial law. Civilian politicians have not just captured the Nigerian state, they have hijacked democracy and rubbished it. We don't have a democracy anymore in Nigeria.
Prof, you did make reference to Edo as a situation where, you know, we experienced the same sort of thing and nothing happened. A situation which many have described as less than ideal. From what you witnessed and what we all witnessed in Edo, what do you think should have transpired? Because a number of people thought it was totally wrong that lawmakers validly elected were not sworn in and allowed to act and participate in what was transpiring in the activities of the House of Assembly.
Well, surely if the judiciary worked in our country, and that's why we have checks and balances, if the judiciary worked, the judiciary should have been the arbitrating authority to sort what happened in Edo State out. But, you know, fundamental to governance is the concept of legitimacy. And if anybody wants to understand this more, go and read Simon Martin Lipset. The idea that the state in post-colonial Africa has become increasingly lacking of legitimacy makes it unable to carry out its other functions effectively. And so if people are poor, it's partly because of that. So if we're going to really have a working country, we need to begin to rebuild our institutions. I've challenged the Nigerian Bar Association many times. They owe us something. Look at Pakistan, the way the lawyers even went on the streets to get their judiciary right. But the Nigerian Bar Association has allowed the judiciary to drift to a point where it has lost the respect or the trust of the Nigerian people across the board. And when you get there, society is in serious trouble. So we need to reconstruct, rebuild the judiciary, and they are the ones who, in normal times, would intervene in a way that a Justice Kayode Shaw, Justice Chukwudipo Puta would probably have responded. So I would say that that's where we start. But a new civil society in which there is consciousness, public sensitivity to right and wrong, and in which people move to exercise it in non-violent ways is very important. Civil society has been killed in Nigeria. We just have a few NGOs talking. That's not civil society. Civil society is about horizontal linkages of citizens to ensure that the public sphere is appropriately in tune with the democratic essence, that a marketplace of ideas truly does exist, and that rational public conversation, in the classic Jürgen Habermas sense, is taking place. But we've lost that. We've lost that. We need to rebuild this democracy from ground up. It's not working in Nigeria. And you can see it in the poverty.
You're clearly quite peeved that, the National Assembly did take a voice vote. Would it have made a difference if they had voted individually, their name, and we had the same results?
Yes, it would be more democratic, yes, for sure. After allowing a real debate, not one that you hush down people up that mic, real debate. And it would have been easy. As Connie said, hey, 1/3 of the people could just simply filibuster the thing. It's a 48 hours thing, and it's over. They had that window. They could have used it, but they chose to progress against the Nigerian people. The Nigerian political class is now an enemy of the Nigerian people, acting against the interest of the people. And I think that needs to be addressed.
How do you see this getting resolved?
I don't know. They started it, they finished it. But I also think that we have reached a stage in our country where we should have men of dignity. Ibas should have said, I'm not accepting this role. Why don't we have men who stand up for something in Nigeria anymore? Why?
Well, Prof, this is certainly a developing story. I mean, I don't think that we've heard the last of what, of this emergency rule. The new administrator appointed has now taken office in Rivers State. We'll wait to see, just how things develop in Rivers State and also here at the National Assembly. But we have to thank you so much for your time this morning. Professor Utomi is a professor of political economics and founder, Center for Values in Leadership. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
A great pleasure.
Well, we'll take a break at this time. We'll be back shortly to look at another issue, the tragedy which occurred around the Yanya area of Abuja. What precisely can be done to avert such disasters in future? Please stay with us.
Okay, let's have another conversation. As you heard Marquez say the other time, the Abuja tanker explosion is one of several. It raises serious concerns about safety in the face of the CNG initiative, tanker explosion. There was a day I was driving past a place, I saw a container fall off a truck and so many other issues like that. So one wonders, is this a safety issue, security challenge, economic issue? What exactly is it? Let's have conversations this morning with Antonia Berry, who is founder, Safety Consultants and Solutions Providers Limited, SCSP in Lagos. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
I said, unfortunately, the other time, it seems like we are creating some kind of live fireworks in our country, in different parts too. Lagos, we saw a series of explosions involving fuel bearing containers, vehicles in the city. We've heard in some parts of the east as well, where tanker, fuel truck fell off. People were scooping fuel. Next thing you know, there's a fire. Recently, in Abuja as well, something similar happened. Do you see a common trend or a common thread connecting all the issues?
Unfortunately, yes. I don't know how many times we're going to drum and speak on the same conversation. Prevention, best practice, and corrupt practices as well. So they are quite prevalent. The Abuja incident, it's a magnitude of a failure that we cannot even begin to imagine. When we keep talking fires occur for a reason. The question is, why do they occur? That's what we should be addressing. That's where the preventive measures should be coming in. It's not in responding and overburdening the emergency response system that is already thinned out by letting these things happen. So when you look at the Abuja situation, we're moving to CNG-powered vehicles. It's a transgression. We're moving in technology, innovative. Are we adequately prepared as a nation and looked at the mitigation and the risk that come with this transformative process of going to cleaner energy services? So when we study it, we have to look at, when we're using them, what are the risks? How do we mitigate them? In this case, the cement truck is being powered by CNG. CNG gas is contained in bottles. Is there a decree on the proper using it on mobile vehicles, transporting it, safe transportation, safe storage? Should these bottles not be anchored to the truck? So when we're talking about a fire happening, it is a consequence of a failure in a transformative process. So the initiators of this transformative process must take into account technical advice from experts to ensure it doesn't happen. It will happen again if they don't look at the fundamental risk management principles in a good idea turned bad.
Well, you know, madam, there are those who would say CNG dates back into the 1850s. So it's not like something that's just suddenly sprung on us.
Sure.
This technology is not new. It dates back centuries. So its use, perhaps the evolution of its use is perhaps what the issue is.
Absolutely, yes.
So is it that, because even here in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, we've been talking about it for some 10, 20 years now, trying to evolve into cleaner energy, as you say. And Nigeria is also a signatory of sorts into these things. So where is the gap? Is it regulatory? Is it commercial? Where exactly is the issue here?
The fundamental gap is in concept. That's the regulators. They might put it on paper, in the implementation is not translating. So the question becomes, on a truck again, I'll take this particular instant. Those bottles should have been anchored. They shouldn't be popping. They should have been fastened and stayed to the body of the truck. There's a way of transporting gas cylinders that is acceptable and minimizes such risk. The truck driver who is even transporting them, is he even aware? Has he been given a data sheet of the capabilities of the negative impact of what he's transporting or what he's using? Is he educated in the consequence of moving in with this translation in use? So people might get engaged with danger without looking at it, without knowing so. So yes, the regulators are accountable for bringing it, implementing it, and making sure that it is safely used and everybody is educated to the possible consequences.
Are fires avoidable?
They are obviously avoidable.
Totally avoidable?
Yes. If you take the fire triangle, you have the fuel, you have the energy, which can be a spark or anything else, and you have oxygen. If you remove one, a fire can never happen. When the three come in that triangle, a fire will happen. So in this case, you had all three. What could have been removed? The CNG component, that's the fuel, could have been removed. The oxygen was there. You will have sparks, you have moving vehicles, you have people around. So the CNG leakage created the fuel for the fire to happen. That's all you need to eliminate, just one of that. And in this case, it's very possible it could have been done.
In the previous cases, CNG wasn't directly involved or wasn't involved at all. The one that happened in Lagos under the Tedola Bridge.
Well, you had gas. Gas is a fuel.
Okay.
So you're still putting, what we're doing in this case is, when you look at the oil and gas sector, they're carrying fuels. That's why they are so, when there is a release of fuel, the other two are commonly present, right? So you look at that particular industry, it's a recurring decimal. Because their product is fuel. So it's a recurring decimal.
Now, you mentioned something the other time about, you know, avoiding this whole thing altogether. I'm wondering how we can address the safety component of this conversation. The safety elements, the part where the driver knows what's going to happen and does everything to mitigate it, from the very point of picking up the energy supply to wherever they are going, considering the roads they're going to use, the kind of vehicle it is, the state of the vehicle, the state of mind of the driver, and all those things. Do you think the entire value chain is giving its due?
No. I want to reverse what you're saying, and I want to start from somewhere else. Maybe we should start by holding people who let this happen accountable and calling it a criminal act, because you're murdering people. Now, you take the case in Abuja. I haven't heard who is responsible, who is the company, who is going to do what. We're calling them to action. In all the statements by all the regulators and the emergency systems, we're talking about, oh, we're going to treat people. Is that all? There is psychological damage. There are people who are dead. Their children's fees will be left unpaid for years. Families are going to go starving because people are dying, right? I haven't even heard the insurance. So there's a big lacuna somewhere. The gap is so huge. So at this point, I'll be saying, okay, you're responsible for this failure. We're going to look at this and you're going to pay so much. Now, imagine that we do what other countries do. We say if a life is lost because of negligence, you're paying 10 billion naira. When one is held accountable, all of that will follow and look at the rule book properly to make sure. Until accountability is brought in the recovery process, people don't see a reason why they should do it.
Until the labor unions come out again and say,
I'm not saying labor union. I want to say the stakeholder. The immediate say, maybe I lost somebody in this. Yeah. And now, legally, the government is now my champion and saying that this person will be held accountable and you paid 10 million in 10 places. And this can shut businesses. Hey, big business.
So the conversation needs to expand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Markwe has questions for you as well. Go ahead, Markwe.
Indeed, it's been a very tricky one, because I do know that, you know, in this instance, a tanker wasn't directly involved. What was involved was a trailer laden with cement, but that trailer was powered by CNG. And here we also have a government trying to encourage people to transit to CNG because it is cheaper. However, there have been safety concerns around the deployment of this particular form of fuel. So we understand that this trailer, the brakes failed, and as such, it hit people, it hit vehicles on the road, and, you know, there was a conflagration, you know, a conflagration ensued as a result of that. So how do you think that governments can manage, you know, talking about encouraging people to transit to this form of fuel when they see this sort of disaster happening when an accident occurs?
It's a good question. And I absolutely think there is a need to transition to cleaner energy. So the technology, the idea is not bad. The only question here is the management of the transition in this process. How does the government get people to imbibe it? By ensuring that the people are accountable, by ensuring that they themselves as the regulators, they are enforcing what they need to enforce. I just mentioned now, in this case, this is what happened. The government's position should be a major take of making people accountable, making people feel comfortable that they would hold big businesses accountable for what is happening. If they fail to do that, why would I, as an individual, then side with the government? We are talking about failed vehicles. I happen to be on another program where I mentioned, look, on safety laws, they are there. The concept is on paper. However, when you hand it to be managed by people who are not at that level of education, you don't give them the equipment, the resources, and then you're paying them a pittance. You create a gap in the system that allows room for certain practices that might not that are not aligned with the safety objectives of the nation, and then you have all of these things happening. So I think we need to go back to fundamental. These are more strategic level issues, deciding who handles what are the capabilities, manpower planning for the nation in terms of areas where there are critical safety needs. Also making sure that they are enforced. The instance in Abuja, it is said that the truck driver was not meant to be there through that path at that hour. The truck driver left. There were police officers on the road, nobody to stop him from going. And he's speeding and the brake fails. So let's look at the narrative. So we have a defiant driver who cannot be controlled by our whole transportation system and the associated, I want to say, stakeholders. And then he ends up in that. Are you saying if we can't manage that, then what can we manage? So I think we need to look at it beyond a good transformative idea. Idea is excellent, cleaner energy, better environment, sustainable future, sustainable world. How is it being managed? What are the resources? What are the capabilities available to do this? That's the question that should be addressed.
It's a really, it's a very big question, because we see that generally it would seem that the safety agencies on the road, federal, it would seem that they are helpless in terms of enforcing regulation. So many times, I mean, I'm sure you drive as well, you see people violating traffic rules and, nothing is done about it, particularly on highways. So for you, do you really think that is this really beyond us, or do you think that, we should just rely on the good sense of people because looking at this sort of penalty, we're all paying the penalty. The people involved in this accident, this tragedy, are paying the penalty. Their family members are paying the penalty. Society is paying the penalty. You will think that as a result, we will all be of better behavior, but clearly that is not the issue. What do you think we should do now to be able to really uphold our own laws? Do you think that ordinary citizens, have a role to play in this?
Have a very important role, and is talking about the culture change in our society at large. However, there was one official that did say, make a comment that people did not respond as they should. I found that comment rather offhand. What do you mean by they didn't respond as they should? That's not right. Look, the government is responsible for the safety of the people. The government is responsible for having the officers. We will have defiant people in society. One truck driver that refuses to follow the law does not mean that the psychology of everybody there is a defiant citizen. That's not true. The laws and the government are there to control the defiant people. That's why they're on the road. So I wouldn't want to generalize that we as a people, we don't, we're not safety conscious. We are. The question is, what are the controls of those who choose not to be and put all of us in danger? The question of Nigeria at large, that's who we are, I shy away from it because you are safety conscious, I am, and I know a lot of people who are. So, but should we live with dangers? How do they protect us? How does the government protect us? So yes, we should be safety conscious, but first, the government is there to protect the people from all sorts of safety issues and insecurity. So I will still throw it back to them to look at how they are managing it. Yes, and then I'll encourage all of us to also be very conscious of our own safety and security and take responsibility for it. But on a platform that is provided by our government, it's a minimum expectation from them.
Well, the conversation is not going to end today, but in a few seconds, maybe you want to tell us how we communicate safety from when people are young. Good. It's Friday. Parents are going to be home today from the evening of today and into tomorrow and Sunday and the rest of them. What are the basic safety elements you think we should begin to communicate to children at whatever age from now?
Absolutely. Safety starts at home. The culture of safety starts in your house. When there is, who has an extinguisher at home? How many of us do? So we grow up in an unsafe environment and we take it as normal. Have you visited the schools? Something as a zebra crossing in a school, they're missing. So how do we become trained to audit our environment and even highlight the gaps before an incident happens? So we grow to see issues, then we react to issues. We don't grow in a culture where we're trained to see the danger and prevent it before the issue happens. So it starts from home, it starts from the schools, it starts from the community.
Sounds to me like we need a curriculum for the family to get
Yeah, I think
right.
families should be having that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Antonia Berry is founder, safety consultants and solutions provider, SCSP. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you very much, Ira.
Well, that's the show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning, and have a wonderful weekend ahead. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, I do know that a number of people will be paying close attention to the match between Nigeria and Rwanda. Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll bring that one home. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.